The following is a continuation of an analysis of the All Kill chapter. Let's keep going. I'd like to compare Ji-Woon's beginning at the Mighty One Entertainment record label to Yun-Jin's. Her start shows some bitterness at a lack of recognition, which plays into a narcissistic sense of entitlement, but in this instance I feel it's justified. Yun-Jin has been putting in the work and she feels as though she's being exploited. And she just might be right. See, entitlement isn't necessarily a bad thing. We're all entitled to live in peace, to free speech, to basic dignity. The entitlement of the true narcissist is very different. The entire world owes him. But how cruel is the world? Well, the whole world isn't cruel. There are good things and bad things, but someone with a narcissistic pathology would typically split. Splitting is a basic psychological defense also used by people with borderline personality disorder. It's dichotomous thinking, in seeing things as either all good or all bad. This is combined with the narcissist's typical projecting their negativity externally. It's a cold, horrible, evil world because that's all the narcissist can see. It's all he is. He externalizes internal thought patterns. Again, I talked about this with Ghostface and that anthropology class, but I hope you indulge me. A good example, not illustrated in this story, is the narcissist's paranoia. Narcissists imagine others hate and despise them because the narcissist secretly hates and despises himself, and not so secretly hates and despises everyone else. Now let's examine the context of the K-pop industry. I think even the worst narcissist is justified in calling out this world. Good people will die like dogs, bad people will be rewarded and elevated, and it looks like that trend is going to continue. But before that, I want to talk about Ji-Woon's appearance. Most narcissists care very much about how they look, obviously. It's because looks are the easiest and most reliable means to extracting narcissistic supply. And he is... my god. Even the nastier videos against him give the devil his due. Move over, shirtless David. Move over, shirtless Myers. Sadly, for the mortals, most narcissists really are visually pleasing. I suppose this is more a histrionic personality disorder presentation of NPD. Histrionic is another cluster B pathology and many traits are shared. Sex and sexuality are used as weapons, or at the very least as tools to garner attention from others. The most obvious is in looking good. From a gameplay perspective, bright colours and being handsome doesn't make much sense, but only if you've not been paying attention. Narcissists might be nice to look at, but you better believe that what's on the inside is a very different story. I feel I have a good insight into his inner world, and it's not something any healthy person would want near them. It's this aspect that makes him intimidating. But to view Ji-Woon as intimidating is stretched and feeble. I respect the view that people just don't like this killer. To borrow another villain from the Final Fantasy series, Seymour Guado is another colourful character, but I don't find him intimidating at all, even though he's actually an excellent candidate for an NPD diagnosis himself. I think what I want to point out is the narcissist wants you to look at him, so he looks good or outlandish to get your attention. If he was as ugly as the other killers of DBD, his central theme wouldn't work. Consider him a male femme fatale. You want to look, you might want to love, but it might well cost you your life. And if it does cost you, you deserve it for being so stupid. He is a mentally unhinged narcissist and you need to run. But maybe I'm just so invested in him having NPD, maybe I'm excluding other possibilities. The next paragraph gives us more insights. Ji-Woon lived in a daze of interviews and adoration, and though the frenzied schedule exhausted his bandmates, he was invigorated. Each day was an affirmation that he was greater than the mediocrity society spewed out. Again, we see that he's not exhausted by what he has to do compared to the rest of his band, who are likely more neurotypical than he is. He brought a touch of madness and it made them successful. NPD can be beneficial, but let's not lose sight that it's a mental illness, not a superpower. Maybe depression inspired Van Gogh, but it was devastating to him. And what of mental illness? We see more symptoms appearing. Number 3, a belief in one's specialness, and number 9, arrogance. We've seen plenty of evidence for both before this point, but now he's in the public eye, his pathology is laid bare for the reader. On top of this, he again displays his contempt for anyone not him by calling the rest of society mediocre. He has evidence of his superiority now, his narcissistic supply reaching new heights and buffering his arrogance. And he truly feels like he deserves it. He truly feels he is better and is owed this special position. This, along with everything else thus far, leads me to believe he has another symptom. Number 5, a sense of entitlement. Narcissism actually can't be diagnosed in anyone under the age of 18, or so I'm told. All young children and teenagers are to some extent narcissistic, so a psychologist would have difficulty gauging their true personality. Narcissists don't grow out of it, and they often have that eerie Peter Pan vibe to them. At this point, I think any clinician worth their salt would have no problem giving Ji-Woon the NPD diagnosis, and we're not even halfway done yet. Why didn't more people talk about this? Ji-Woon is terrifying, and we've not even reached the murders yet. In Yun-Jin's story, we see some displays of narcissistic behaviour. She's somewhat attention-seeking, she's rather haughty, and she has a degree of conviction that she's special and is indeed associating with high-value people despite her modest beginnings. Let me quickly remind everyone that just because you feel your narcissism is deserved, it makes you no less narcissistic. Narcissism is inherently delusional, but if you really are a glamorous success rather than just deceiving yourself that you are, your views of superiority and specialness don't negate any charges of being a dirty narc. You've just become corrupt, you're just spoilt, and being spoilt makes a narcissist just as much as being deprived. This is not healthy self-esteem. But Yun-Jin doesn't strike me as contemptuous of others and seems to be quite stable. There's also this sense of gratitude with her. Gratitude is very important because it suggests a degree of insight and a degree of empathy. These are two things the narcissist sorely lacks because both would inherently question his beliefs about himself. It's taken me a while to talk about empathy, despite it being vital in understanding narcissism. For now, I'll just say that people who lack empathy typically have problems with gratitude, forgiveness, and memory. I'm not confident as to explain exactly why that is, it's all rather complicated, but I'll come back to it. Yun-Jin is at least partly thankful, but Ji-Woon is not. Over time, the champagne grew stale. When Ji-Woon looked at his fans, he saw their joy and envy split 5 ways, thinned out between each band member. The validation that had surged through him left a desperate yearning for more. Ji-Woon kept up impressions, mimicking a charm long buried under loathing. It's never enough for the narcissist. The high from narcissistic supply is not positive emotionality. I hear it's kind of like a drug that stands in for positive emotionality. And like all drugs, a tolerance is soon built, and one needs more to achieve that same high that's so desperately missed. But there's another key word in the last section that the eagle-eyed might have picked up on. Symptom number 8, envy. Either envious of others or believing others are envious of you. The use of envy in this context suggests that Ji-Woon wants all of his audience's envy. He needs to be the object of envy because he is superior, and people envy that which is superior. But that envy is diluted with the other members of No Spin. I'd like to take a moment to discuss envy. Of all the misconceptions around narcissism, this is the most understandable. One would be forgiven for thinking the cardinal sin of NPD is pride, the arrogance, the contempt, the self-obsession. Instead, the fundamental sin of the narcissist, and the sin that is most characteristic of them, is envy. Like with empathy, this is a complicated topic and I hope to do my best with it, but as I understand it, it works thusly. The narcissist is God. God lacks for nothing. God is complete and perfect. There is nothing to be envious of. And yet reality intrudes on this narcissistic delusion. The narcissist looks into the world and quickly sees things that are better than him. And as someone who feels he has no innate sense of value, he feels envy. But this envy challenges the grandiose nature of the false self. The envy suggests he's not perfect, and that he is lacking. This is inexcusable. This is a minor example of narcissistic injury, which I'll explore in more detail later, but let's just say this acknowledgement of something good outside the false self is painful for the narcissist to recognise. His envy is malignant and all-pervasive. Nothing is equal to the narcissist. Nothing is equal to God. The narcissist then begins the devaluing process of the target of his envy, belittling, attacking, even outright sabotaging so that he no longer has to feel this agonizing injury. Sour grapes play a big role here, highlighting the negative aspects of the thing in question to make that thing appear less desirable. It's pathetic, really, an indicator of how childlike and underdeveloped the narcissist's psyche really is, and it's not something a narcissist would ever admit. He won't be able to acknowledge it without causing narcissistic injury, and that injury could prove dangerous. And the passage makes explicit reference to Ji-Woon's innate loathing. We'll see just how dangerous his envy really is after Yun-Jin's turn. As they were recording new tracks, the fire alarm suddenly blared. Concerned for her safety, Yun-Jin hurried to evacuate the building and left the dallying staff behind. Only when she bolted out into the street did she realise No Spin was nowhere amongst the coughing crowd. Okay, I think it's pretty clear from this paragraph what's going on. She's only concerned with herself. Being a selfish person is one thing, but being a narcissist is going above and beyond, and in this passage we see the following. Number 3, believing oneself to be special, again. Number 5, entitlement. Number 6, being exploitative. And number 7, a lack of empathy. Ji-Woon, meanwhile, came back from lunch and found the studio ablaze. He rushed to the control room, finding the door blocked by fallen speakers. On the other side, his bandmates pounded on the door, their cries accompanied by the crackling of flames. Ji-Woon called to them, dashing to the speakers, grabbing one and stopping. He froze. Each breath was a conscious, deliberate process requiring all his attention, the nearby cries hardly audible until slowly he backed away, and then he heard it. They were screaming his name as they burnt, screaming for him to save them. Ji-Woon, Ji-Woon, Ji-Woon hack. It was the most beautiful thing he'd ever heard. When the fire crew arrived, his tears were genuine. Number 6, exploitative. And number 7, no empathy. And I've now established that you can make a case that Ji-Woon hack exhibits all 9 symptom criterion for narcissistic personality disorder as outlined in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, at least as far as a rank amateur like me can see. I guess it's true that you really see who a person is in a time of crisis. Just like Yun-Jin, he put himself first. He used other people to get what he wants, and he had no regard for the safety or feelings of others. And, like the K-pop industry, it's a good metaphorical example of the sacrifices being made behind the music. of what it means to be a success. But the true value of the fire goes beyond narcissism. It's a testament that Ji-Woon Hak is far crazier than even I give him credit for. Their dying screams. Maybe one could say this is the most desperate and potent form of narcissistic supply. All of their attention on you as if their life depended on it, and their lives did depend on it, and he did nothing. This is rather fantastical, and I don't have much to say regarding narcissism. This is more about psychosis, but extreme narcissism can border on psychotic. His delusions are so great and all-encompassing that his connection to reality is far more strenuous than I thought. The narcissist can't really tell what's real and what isn't. He has impaired reality testing because reality might tell him that, mental illness notwithstanding, he's average. Better to reject reality entirely than admit that dreadful conclusion. I feel his behaviour can be explained by extreme narcissism and psychosis. Now, the words psychotic and psychopathic are often used interchangeably, and this is wrong. Psychosis is, very broadly, a difficulty in engaging reality. Psychopathy is... well, we'll get to that in due course. But so far Ji-Woon isn't too psychopathic. He didn't save No Spin, true, but then again, neither did Yun-Jin. And how does she do in the aftermath? She clearly didn't see this as a time for mourning. We know 4 members died, the Burnt Wires add-on, but we never even learn the names of the band members who burned to death in scalding agony. She's only concerned with herself, and a slight concern for Ji-Woon and his future prospects. She would be shelved by the record label, while Ji-Woon would rot away as an instructor for idle trainees. That line was interesting. At this point, I fully admit I'm reading too much into this, but I don't think the interest these two have in each other is entirely professional. Why would she care if he rotted away as an instructor? Why did she even choose him in the first place? The talent show she scouted back in the day must have had other talent, saner talent as well. But that's the thing with people with mental health disorders. They attract and are attracted to other people with mental health disorders. Both of these characters would be far too proud to admit they have poor mental health. They'd certainly blame each other if they had a relationship that went bad, call each other narcissists, not take any of the blame because they're perfect. If you disagree with this analysis, simply read the comments under any of those garbage populist narcissism videos and tell me I'm wrong. But that wouldn't stop a whirlwind romance from blossoming behind the scenes. Think Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne. Well, maybe more crazy than that, or less crazy, I don't know. But you get the idea. These two had sex, you guys, 100%. Nothing you can say will convince me otherwise. They must have seen themselves in each other. And the thing about malignant self-love is you want to have sex with yourself. The narcissist is autoerotic. But I need to stop here before this tale of madness, violence and death becomes inappropriate for children. The paragraph is also a testament to how hard Yun-Jin is prepared to work. She even worked without the knowledge of her superiors. A work ethic isn't common amongst narcissists, but I suppose narcissists come in all sorts of flavours, and it's totally conceivable to generate narcissistic supply through your work. And like I said, in the pursuit of narcissistic supply, anything is possible. Indeed, I hear that many narcissists consider themselves machine-like. A lack of genuine emotionality lends itself to viewing oneself, or false self, as a robot, as if you're made of metal. But as previously stated, a sense of entitlement is a massive barrier to working hard. But Ji-Woon had his beloved to help him out. And what did he do? Ji-Woon was celebrated as a tragic figure, a hero who did all he could in a futile attempt to save his friends. Yun-Jin paraded him through interviews until it was time to rebrand. He was reborn as the Trickster, a solo artist who produced his own songs, sporting a soft heart beneath a wild exterior. Image, image, image. The narcissist is all about public relations, and if this PR is part of an industry, all the better. There's not much more to say but a reminder on how Ji-Woon became successful in the first place. They say you need to sell your soul to succeed in entertainment, and this sacrifice sends most people into a pit of despair and pain. Although maybe sell is the wrong word as opposed to discard your soul. Not so the narcissist, there is no soul to discard or sell. And Yun-Jin was just as exploitative over the deaths of the others as he was enjoying their final moments. She pushed him to tap into his grief and create a song exploring the pangs of sudden loss. The music video showed Ji-Woon saying goodbye to each member of No Spin. Yun-Jin cleverly launched the song under Ji-Woon's newly adopted stage name, the Trickster. He would embody both fear and awe like the legendary Dokebi spirits. His image is now a bit more faithful to who he really is, but I'm not too clear on how much. I know nothing about Dokebi spirits, or even if I'm pronouncing that correctly. A quick wiki search tells me they're Korean myths with powers and abilities and interact with humans, sometimes helpful, other times mischievous. Maybe someone more knowledgeable than me can tell if this relates to NPD. But things are going to take a strange turn now. We've reached his first kill.